Thank you. Just to confirm that we are now live.
Thank you, James. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councillor Chris Atwell, Cabinet Member for Communities and Central Services. Welcome to this meeting, which is being held virtually. This is permissible due to there being no decision items on the agenda today. The meeting is being broadcast to enable press and public to view it. Those present are requested to keep their microphones muted and to only turn them on when they are being called to speak. Members are requested to keep their cameras turned on at all times, and officers are requested to turn their cameras on only when they're presenting their reports or answering questions. If anyone would like to speak, please use the hands up function. Okay, introductions. I will now invite everyone to introduce themselves. Members, Jeanette.
Yeah, my name is Councillor Jeanette Smith, and I'm a spokesperson on this committee for PPP.
Thank you, Jeanette. George.
Thank you, Chris. I'm Councillor George Fielding, and I'm the spokesperson for the Labour Group on this committee.
Thank you, George. And Lee.
Councillor Lee Mason, Closham Ward, and the Conservative Party there.
Thank you, Lee. And officers, Natasha.
Thank you, Natasha Edmonds, Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Natasha. Mark.
Mark Sage, Tackling Poverty Coordinator.
Thank you, Mark. James.
Thank you. James Harris, Senior Local Democracy Officer.
And the excitingly named D5.
Councillor, well, that is the Slave account that's used for the live streams, so I'm not actually person present.
Okay, all right, exciting one, it's called D5. Okay, apologies for absence. No apologies received. That's right, James, yes?
That is correct.
Good, excellent. Declarations of interest. I have no declarations of interest to declare. Members? No, thank you, members. So to today's substantive items, agenda item 3, how the council is using the Household Support Fund to assist residents in financial hardship. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Do you have anything by way of introduction or to add to the report?
Yeah, shall I just introduce briefly, if that's okay? So thanks. So Mark Sage, I'm the Council's Tackling Poverty Coordinator, presenting the report. And this report outlines how the Council is using the funding that's available from the Department of Work and Pensions until the end of March to support people in financial hardship in Portsmouth. So the report explains the background to the funds and what we're able to use it for. And at Appendix 1, there's a table outlining all of the different schemes that we're funding and an estimate of how much we expect to spend in each area up to the end of the scheme. The report also notes that in Portsmouth we made full use of the funding available from DWP under previous schemes since December 2020, and we expect to use the full amount of this grant allocation as well to help local residents. And the key things that we've tried to do in implementing these schemes are to work in partnership with agencies in the city that are supporting people in financial hardship, and in particular our partnerships with the Hive Portsmouth and with the Environment Centre have enabled us to deliver our discretionary grant schemes, and also to get people linked into other support that can help them to manage longer term, things like benefit checks, specialist debt advice, and promoting other provision like the holiday activities and food programme. So rather than just focus on the household support fund provision, we've tried to promote a consistent message to residents on income maximisation with 3 key messages, which is to make sure you're receiving everything you're entitled to, find ways to cut your costs, and to get help if you can't afford to pay your debts. So as things stand, we don't expect there to be any further household support fund after the end of March, unless we get a different announcement from DWP, but we'll still be promoting those same income maximisation messages to residents, and we'll continue working with partners in the city to find ways that we can work together to help people who are struggling financially. So just to give you a bit of an idea of the number of households being helped during the school holidays, our holiday voucher schemes support around 5,500 families in the city with children eligible for free school meals. And to date, our discretionary grant scheme has assisted over 500 households, and our energy voucher scheme has assisted almost 1,000 households. So yeah, that's just a brief introduction to the report there, but of course happy to answer any questions if I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Members, comments or questions for Mark? Jeanette?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I'm a little bit confused why this report has been done by Housing, Neighbourhood and Building Services and not by the benefits people that we have within the council. So that's sort of one thing, because I thought that's where the fund was going to. Also, it mentions the Hive further down in 3.2.6, but in 3.2.3 it says working in partnership with other agencies. Could you tell me who they are? And the other bit is the Appendix 1. The spend to the 31st of the 1st is filled in only halfway, and then we don't get anything for transport costs for young people, holiday activities, carpets, flooring and scheme and the rest. And some of the figures seem a bit low that we've actually spent. And why is that? Why can't people get? So if we look at the discretionary grant scheme, 197,000 has been spent to date, but the estimated cost was 507,000. So how much budget did we actually have, and why isn't everybody getting them? If that makes sense.
Mark?
Thank you. And Councillor Smith, could I just double check which it was where the note about working in partnership and other agencies, could I just check which part of the report? I missed the number.
I think 3.2.3.
3.2.3, thank you. Right, I'll just cross-check to the report. So the first question was about why the report's not being done by our Revenues and Benefits Service and where the funding sits. So the funding that's come down from DWP during the COVID, since the COVID pandemic, initially started in Christmas 2020, kind of sort of followed on from the campaign by Marcus Rashford and others around free school meals during the school holidays. So we had some funding initially, and the budget holder, the budget's actually sat with the Children and Families team. But I've been the lead for it because these temporary funds, there isn't kind of a sort of statutory responsibility within the council responsible for them. They've just been short-term grants that we've been able to use. So the reason that I've led on them as tackling poverty coordinator is because sort of local welfare provision has kind of fell under my remit, what we can do around that, what's available, making sure that people are aware of the help. So I've helped to coordinate and lead on them, but obviously with support from our benefits teams and teams across the council. So that's and my role sits within Housing, Neighbourhoods and Building Services, but it is a corporate role, so I work across the council. So that's the reason why I'm presenting the report, and it's under HMB. So 3.2.3 of the report. Sorry, let me just double check what that was in relation to. Yes, so in terms of working with partnership with other agencies in the city, the key thing really is being able to reach people that need this support. So what we haven't got is an open access scheme that anyone can phone up and apply to, because in the sort of timescale that we had for delivering the scheme, around 4 months, being able to stand up a team is, there's sort of practical difficulties around that. But also, if you start with a completely separate scheme that has to start from scratch with everybody who's applying, then obviously people are having to tell their story again. And, so what we've aimed to do instead is to involve agencies that are already working with people who are in financial hardship. So that's in, teams across the council, but also lots of voluntary sector teams that are already working with people, and then using their engagement with people in the city, their knowledge of people's circumstances, to help us to deliver things like the discretionary grant scheme. So the Hive obviously is a really important part of that, and they're also helping us, with the fulfilment and the delivery of those grants. But it is, a range of partner agencies that are involved in delivering the schemes. And yes, so in terms of the funding, so again, what we aim to do, because we didn't actually have the guidance on how we could use the funds until November. So what we did initially was to start to get some schemes up and running so that we could get help out to people as soon as possible. It was always quite difficult to predict exactly what the demand would be for those and what the spend was likely to be on them. So so some of the schemes we started sooner to sort of see what we could learn from demand there, and then look at what else was needed after that, and other things have followed on afterwards and been introduced later on. So those, in terms of the spend, that was where we had already spent funds up until that date, and in other areas we hadn't yet confirmed the spend. So all those schemes were sort of being developed and being put in place. We hadn't yet used any of the funding. So for, I think you said around the discretionary grant scheme, that was the estimate up to the end of January was 197,000. It's actually now the latest estimate that I've got to date is actually 334,000 now via our discretionary grant scheme. So it was kind of just to do with the dates of sort of writing the report and the information that we had available. But and obviously it's it's very fast moving, and we're we're seeing around 60 referrals a week into that scheme. So was that all of the questions? No.
Yeah, can I just do a follow-up? Because at the end of that graph, it says admin costs as a percentage of total grant is 4.1%. That seems quite high for admin costs. So what are admin costs?
So around the costs of delivering the schemes, there's actually a huge amount of work done. Particularly I'll give a huge amount of credit to people, teams in the council and other agencies that we're working with that are putting a huge amount of work to get this help out to people. Obviously, the administration is around in terms of setting up the schemes, legal, finance, all of that kind of thing. But then actually processing applications. And getting the help out to people. The particularly for partner agencies like the Environment Centre that we're working with, who are doing our energy voucher scheme, they have to make staff available solely to deliver this because of the level of demand that they've had. So we think those are very they compare favourably to other areas, and certainly DWP are very happy with that as a level of administrative costs. But
thanks, Mark. I just find it strange that we're paying admin costs on money that's desperately needed in the community, and all the teams that you've just outlined were already there in place. So I just find that difficult to accept any cost for admin because it's money that's needed in the community. But it is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Members, any other comments and questions from Mark? No. Okay. Well, George. Yep.
Never mind. I was just going to echo Jeanette's concerns really about the administrative costs, seeing that they are pre-existing organisations and partners that we work with. It does seem as though it's potential wastage of what could be put into people's pockets. So it was just echoing that concern more than anything.
Thank you, George. Mark will pick that up and see if we can do anything about that. But Mark, as always, thank you for your passion and compassion for the role that you have and all your hard work. I think it's going to be particularly important, the income maximisation bit of your role in the coming weeks and months with the cost of living crisis. I think impacting almost everyone. So thanks, there's lots to do, and grateful for the report. And I will see you in an hour and a quarter.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, item 4, Natasha. Staff wellbeing survey.
Thank you. Yes. So I won't. I'll assume that you've all read the report, so I won't go into any further detail. So just really a summary of the findings and the purpose of the report, which is really to track the well-being of staff. The purpose of which really is to make sure that we have a fit and healthy workforce. And this is from a business continuity point of view to make sure that we've got staff available to continue delivering services to residents in the city, particularly where staff are delivering to the most vulnerable. So we have had an approach throughout the pandemic where we've been surveying residents regularly. We've also been surveying staff regularly to assess what we can do to support staff wellbeing, comply with our duty of care, and enable staff to continue working, accepting that some of the work being done is being done in a very different way to what we've all been used to previously. So a lot of working from home and hybrid arrangements that are in place. So we previously carried out a survey in February 2021, and this report relates to a survey that we carried out in November 2021. Generally, staff are feeling well supported, but we are seeing a decline in the levels of satisfaction of staff with their work and their working arrangements. But that does mirror national findings of similar surveys and probably reflects a general fatigue across society of the last 2 years of the impact on people's lives. The contents.
Thank you.
I'll stop there for questions.
Thank you. Jeanette, George, Lee, questions, comments? Jeanette?
Yes, thanks for the report. I was a little bit disappointed, only 42% replied, but then I always am. And how can we encourage ways for people to complete these surveys in a higher fashion than that, because that is quite low. The 3 percentage points decrease in staff are satisfied with their work. I thought that would shift the other way because people are working from home, which would have made it easier. But are there problems with working from home? I think we need to delve into that. And then the actions and next steps. There wasn't a detailed action plan there, so I don't know whether one's been drawn up because this is quite sort of broad. And I think it would be nice to see the actual action points that come out of the survey specific for directorates, really.
Do you want me to respond to those points?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Yeah, the satisfied with the work. So some of the reasons behind people being less satisfied with work now that they've given relate to some of it is about not being satisfied with the working environment. For some, it's working from the office. For some, it's working from home. But a lot of it also relates to the workload and a significantly higher workload than people have experienced, and the extent to which that's impacting on people's work-life balance. So a lot of it is in relation to that. And interestingly, the satisfaction levels of staff who are working from home are higher than the satisfaction levels of the staff who are working in the office. So you're absolutely right. We completely agree that we need to delve into that further, because one of the questions that we're trying to understand is, if people who are working from home are more satisfied, is it because we've put an awful lot of emphasis on supporting staff working from home and less emphasis on supporting staff who've had, for whatever reason, had to remain working from the office? So there's less management visibility of those staff. So that's something that we're looking at and investigating to see what the causes of that are. A concern, however, is the high workload. We have noted that staff are working considerably longer hours. And it is reflected in the FEET survey results that staff are finding it harder to do all of their work within their contracted hours. That's what staff are reporting. So that's another thing that we're looking into to try and understand. In terms of the action plan, so each of the directors has been tasked with developing a detailed action plan for their directorate. And I'm also working with communications and HR to develop a corporate overarching action plan around all of this, but directors are being tasked with doing that individually, recognising the different services that we deliver, and therefore an overarching corporate one isn't necessarily going to address some of the service specific issues that need to be dealt with at a directorate level.
Thank you, Natasha. George?
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say thank you for the all. So interesting you say about the differences between the different directorates and whether we can drill into some of the detail more specifically about the satisfaction levels of staff, how they vary between the different ones and what can be done to address that. I also picked up on the fact that satisfaction's dropped in comparison to people working from home to the office environment, and did wonder whether that came from an emphasis of a lot of work had been done to address people in the working from home environment, and whether people in the office have not been forgotten, but the adaptation has not been as rapid there. And as people come back to the office, so we've seen, obviously we're talking from November last year, but during that time there would have been a shift of people coming back to the office. So people may not just be they don't find it as satisfactory in the new normal, if you like, that working from home can be seen as a more convenient way of working, and whether that's something we continue going forward is yet to be seen.
Yeah, that we are continuing to engage with staff through the connectivity programme around the return to the office, and actually we're doing some urgent work in the next 24 hours, given the government's announcements yesterday around all of that. But work is continuing for the plan to come back to a more normal way of working and an increased use of the office environment. So, you know, and as part of our own Portsmouth learning to live with COVID, we still have to manage a business continuity within that, because case rates are still high. And of course, when the testing stops, we won't know what the infection levels are. Our focus has to be on continuing to deliver services and business continuity. So we will continue to take a risk managed approach to staff working and being in the workplace environment, which is what the connectivity programme and the future ways of working is all about, is creating a COVID safe working environment, so that we can manage to maintain attendance levels focused on delivering services. So that's the focus there, and trying to achieve the right balance of home working, remote working, and office presence as well, because office presence doesn't necessarily equate to productivity. It just means there's presence there. So it's finding that balance as we work our way through working in a very different way.
Okay, George.
Yeah, thank you very much, Natasha.
Well, you're right, aren't you? The big picture is that we're all starting to understand the impact of the last 2 years on it. But I know our very first conversation, Natasha, after the Christmas break, included some time talking about staff welfare and how important that's going to be in the coming months. Thank you all. Any more comments, questions for Natasha? Thank you, as always. Now, both substantive items were information reports, excuse me, for noting only, and I better just to satisfy James, say that I note both reports this afternoon. Thank you. If that's, I think that's it. That was short and sweet, if there's nothing else. So thank you all for your attendance, and I am formally closing the meeting at 2:25 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Lee.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mark, Natasha, James, and the mysterious D5.